citizens of Prairie View. It's a delight to have you all present here this evening, show that you are concerned about the future of our city, county, and our communities. This evening we have three election positions going on. One is for the city mayor, and then one's for the city council, and then the precinct 3 commissioners court. And so what I'd like to do is, you can't go wrong by following the Gregorian calendar, so we're going to follow using the alphabetical way of coming forward for the candidates for mayor. We have Mr. David Allen, Mr. Michael Prince, and Mr. Brian Rowland. And I don't see anyone here from the city council. Right, the city council. None of those persons are here. We have one person in the house for the runoff on the commissioner's precinct, Mr. Daryl Johnson. So what we'll do is go in order of the mayor's mayoral candidate. We have Mr. David Allen. And according to this, you have between 10 and 15 minutes. I hope we stay within 10 minutes. That's too many minutes. Well, maybe you're talking about a platform, right? Okay. All right, Mr. Allen.
So we're going to speak and then open up the Q&A?
Okay,
so cut down some of it. Good evening.
Good evening.
As Mr. Roberts said, my name is David Allen, and one thing I want to leave you with today is the position of mayor of any city is not a training ground. And when you look at where we are with what's going on around Prairie View, there's a lot of development taking place. Waller is not home rule yet. But with a legacy of these other companies, they'll hit their 5,000, which means they can legally roll our way. Now, as the vice chair of the Charter Commission, I learned some things about that can really take us past all of our revenue coming strictly from residential taxes. We got to get away from that. We've got the highest taxes in the county, and it's killing our people. So when people look even at moving here, that's the issue. Our taxes are higher than Hempstead and Waller, and we have less services than both. Now, what's interesting to me is I've been involved in the Prairie View community for about 43 years. I've lived here for 13 of those years, going on 14. A lot of people, Ms. Clark, Ms. Rosman, a few of you, were former co-workers when I was an accountant for the university. I knew of Mr. Sal, but I knew Michael a lot better. I certainly knew the Bells, and that was the first house I used to visit. But that's another conversation. One of the things that I'm looking at with the city of Prairie View is our city looks a lot worse than it did when I came here at 17 years old. And to me, that is so unacceptable. As me and my wife, even before that, in attending city council meetings, I would put my record of city meetings. Now let me tell you let me make sure you understand what I'm saying. I'm referring to council meetings, call meetings, special meetings, ad hoc meetings, executive 4B meetings, against any. Actually, in the last 4 years, I put that number against all of my fellow candidates. You add theirs up. Because at meetings they were at, I was there, and meetings they weren't, I attended. And having been in touch with Mayor Frank Jackson over the years, even prior to him becoming mayor, who knows how old the John B. Coleman Library is? About 20 years? About 30? Okay. 28? Mayor Jackson and I go so far back that he was planning, along with former President Dr. Hines, an Afrocentric depository at Prairie View. And in working with him, because that's how close we were, I set up an endowment to help with that project. The reason I asked about the Coleman Library, we're talking about the W.R. Banks Library, and that's before some of y'all came here. It was going to be in the Banks Library. My revenue in having generated literally hundreds of thousands of dollars to Prairie View, and I want to share this with you. I think it's nice and interesting that we're meeting in this building, because after our executive director, Mr. Higgs, took on that project, we were at the alumni convention in Chicago, and there was discussion on paying for the building. I got with a couple of my Los Angeles alumni members, committed to them that I would collect the money. But even as president, I didn't want to make the decision, because that's not what you do. So we caucused the night before, and Mr. Higgs would tell you Sam Meadows was president, Dr. Meadows. When Dr. Meadows went to discuss raising the hat to pay for this building we're in now, I said, Doc, I got this. Let me have this. He had asked me to be his fundraising chair for a reason. And we raised the money in Chicago through pledges to pay for the building that you're in. So when I talk to you about being your mayor, I want to talk to you about what I've done, because it's kind of like your resume or your transcript. An employer wants to see how well you did in school before they see if you can do the job they need. Well, that's what I would encourage you all to look at. Don't vote for me because you like me. Don't even vote for me because you don't like me. Vote for Prairie View. As the president of Los Angeles alumni, even when I wasn't here, I became the #1 recruiter for Prairie View A&M University, and that award came through our former provost, Dr. Joanna Thomas-Smith's office, under Dr. Doris Price. So while some of you feel like you just met me a few years ago, those of you who've been around and been involved, you already know me. And I will say this, no one knows more about the activity that I've done to support Prairie View than our current mayor. Because sometimes coming into town, I would stay over with him and Vanessa at the time. While I was out over the Los Angeles alumni, if I talk to you about a title as president, if I can't tell you what I did or accomplished while I was president of a nonprofit group, many of you have been officers in nonprofit groups. We take turns, typically two-year terms. That's not a big deal. But while I was president, because I saw we were losing a lot of good members, I got with former President Becton, and I saw the NAA had the teacher education scholar endowment that y'all had set up a long ago, Mr. Higgs. And I said, can we do one of those as a chapter? President Becton checked with A&M and said, well, they've got chapters doing it. We became the first alumni chapter to start a scholarship endowment, raising $125,000 in 4 years. The goal was $200,000. It's $200,000 now. That was in 1997. So when you look at any of our ability to be mayor, what we've done in the past is a preview. Whatever I haven't done in the past, that's a preview too, because I'll be doing more of that. But I'll wrap up with this. Please take a look at this, and especially the pictures on the back, because that community involvement most of it has been just since I've been here in these last 5 years. I haven't just lived in Prairie View. I came back and got very actively involved in Prairie View. When I was going to the city council meeting often, there were a couple of people, Mr. LaVon Mosley, myself, and 1 or 2 other people in the audience. Now when you go there, it's pretty well packed. because we encouraged people to come out. I want to turn this back into the community, the vibrant community, not the city. It's been a city since '69. That's why I came here. Mayor Sams did that. But it was a community when I came here in '73. We did a lot of fellowshipping, and people knew and looked after each other. When we have bad weather, the only person I can say that has constantly been out there with me, checking on seniors and residents, was Mayor Jackson, including this last rain that we had. He was out there, and so was I. But that's out of our concern. If you don't care about the people, then it's a job, a position, and that's not what we need. We've got too much work to do here to have any of us, myself included, take up a spot when we need to pick up on all the things that have been done over the years. So, in wrapping up and staying within my time frame, let me tell you a couple of things real quickly that I've done since I've been here. Sandra Bland Park had to be canceled because a part of my experience as a franchise consultant with 7-Eleven, we dealt with gas stations. There were a lot of meetings with the architecture department discussing doing something on a former gas station. I used to get gas there when it was the Gold Station years ago. So I took it upon myself to call the state. And TCEQ told me 5 different people. And I gave the name, time, and the phone number and the gist of what they said to the mayor and the council a couple of council meetings ago. They said, "You telling me they can't build anything there?" It's still listed as an active leaking petroleum underground site. And Joyce Shapiro, the supervisor, said it's going to cost somewhere around $30,000 to find out what, if any, additional remediation will be needed. Now, why is that important? Because our city leadership had already spent $40-something thousand buying it through eminent domain. They were prepared to spend another $100,000 on it. And then it turns out we'd have to give it up. A simple phone call. And I spoke to all those individuals except Megan, who's the supervisor over this area. She called back the next day. So the due diligence that we need in our city leadership, and I'm not talking about the mayor. I want to be clear. The mayor has a lot on his plate as the overall leader. We need council members who are going to pick up that phone and do some due diligence. Because a couple of years ago, I picked up the phone, called the Secretary of State, and informed the mayor and the council that they couldn't enter into a $200 million development project with a gentleman out of Austin because the company didn't exist. That's due diligence. And that's just a small part of what I was in a position to do as a citizen, including helping to clean up and getting a lot of people to cut yards and do some things where we now live in Alta Vista. Imagine what I do when you, if and when you select me as your mayor. Thank you.
Good evening to each and every one.
Good evening.
If you don't mind, I'll just stand. That's okay. Let me introduce myself. I'm Michael Prince. I'm a graduate of Prairie View, class of '93, originally from St. Louis, Missouri. Got to Prairie View on a baseball scholarship, and the rest was history. I met a young lady from East Texas, and she told me that she liked Prairie View, and I've been here ever since. I've heard a lot of things being said here from Mr. Allen. We talk about training ground. When we talk about training ground, most of you, or some of you at least, have already seen my work in action. You have voted for me, or at least some of you have voted for me as an active member on the Waller Independent School District as a board of trustee, and I've been fortunate to serve that as 3 terms. In the process of that 3 terms, and we talk about the meeting attendance and making sure, sad but true, I had not seen any citizens from the city of Prairie-View at any meeting. And I've never missed a meeting in the 8 years that I've served. And when we ask the question about due diligence, just because a person's not in that presence doesn't mean that that person's not in tune to what's going on in their community. Because of the fact that I've served this community since 1990. And I've served it as a bicycle trainer for the kids that were in the community, all the way up from 4B, chaplain of the city, and so on and so forth. I'm from Missouri. I don't do a lot of flamboyant talking and stuff. It's a simple show me state. I don't like to talk about what I've done, but I must talk about what I've done because some of you don't know what I've done. I've worked behind the scenes for 6 years. I've worked due diligently to assure that the citizens of this community would have Jones Elementary stay in Prairie View. Ground will be broken come in April, where there's going to be a $30 million school built right off of Owen, Santee, and Eccles Road that's going to continue to help improve the movement of this city going forward. I can honestly say that I was in those rooms defending this city when they wanted to build it on the east side of the county, where they're saying all the growth is taking place. I said, you allow this school to stay here and watch what happens in Prairie View, because I know the vision and the direction that we need to be in. And a part of anybody that wants to be moving and involved with us as a community, we have to show outside forces that we are exactly that, a community. We have to be accountable and responsible toward each other. We have to be respectful of one another, whether we agree to disagree. And I've said firsthand, and I've seen firsthand how Waller Independent School District and the city of Waller were clashing like cats and dogs, but no one never heard of that. Because they knew when to fight and where to fight, and when they went outside, they knew how to get business done so they can attract business and continue to grow. If we want to be a part of this growth that is coming, we were just at a strategic planning meeting on this morning, how we are going to be either in the parade or on the outside looking in. And it's going to start with solid leadership. It's going to start with stable leadership. It's going to start with people that say what they mean and mean what they say. I'm not one that hang out with a lot of people. I'm family oriented. So you don't see me hanging out doesn't mean that I don't support this community, this endeavor. I've been running a small community radio station since 2002, and through that community radio station, we supported the businesses that are here, whether they've lasted or not. Being a part of economic development, people say, well, economic development didn't do anything. Economic development did a whole lot, but it's not our responsibility to make sure that the businesses stay open. Our job is to support them, encourage them, and give them the resources that they need to be successful. We don't write the business plan for them. We don't take and lead them by the hand. We give them suggestions and support, and that's what we've done. I've helped throughout this community. They talk about Little League, and they talk about Boy Scouts of America. Well, I was a district executive for Boy Scouts of America for 5 years. They put me in the worst area that they could put an African-American man. They had me in Tomball and Magnolia. And many of you are old enough to know the history of Tomball and Magnolia. And it's not my, but you think they want to be my friend? No. But they had to respect my hard work, my ethic, and my integrity to get what was done. And when I left Boy Scouts of America, that district alone was raising over $325,000 a year. And the most they had ever done was $117,000. I then went to Tomball Independent School District. From there, I was asked to come and be an administrator for Tomball Independent School District in 2009. When I came to Tomball Independent School District, they were not recognized as a creditable school district. They had what you call a sub-pop. And any of you that's in education background, there's called economically disadvantaged children, quote unquote, the black kids. They gave me 40 kids. They said, you have got to find a way to get them to pass this test. I'm proud to say that 38 of those kids that I had passed that test, and Tomball Independent School District became a recognized school district. And I can tell you, that was my job. That was my work. I stood before Mr. Neubauer himself, who was the superintendent at the time. And I told him, looked him square in his face, you know that's because of my back. He said, yes, sir. And we negotiated a raise. But I don't like to really promote all that. I ask you all right now, 27% of your citizens, your neighbors, are below poverty. My little church has been feeding families for 11 years, but we don't promote that. When the floods come, I was out there, but I don't take pictures and show about that because those are people in personal tragedies. And I don't want to expose that, but I'm there. I do what needs to be done, and I don't try to take credit or reward for it because that's not what service is all about. Service is doing what's in your heart and what you're passionate about. And I'm passionate about this community. I've raised my family in this community. I bought a house that folks was asking me, why did I buy this house? Because it was part of improving the community. I've had many people ask me, well, Mr. Prince, why do you live where you live? I said, because I choose to live here. And I choose to serve this community. Okay, that's fine. And I choose to serve this community. And I choose to continue to serve this community. I believe that it is the due season for the leadership to shift guards in my direction and allow me to work with you that we can bring this city to the standard and credibility that it deserves. Thank you.
Mr. Rowland?
Good evening. Good evening. It is my honor, my privilege to be before you today. Today I just came back this morning. I left Prairie View, Texas, and headed to Austin, where we had the opportunity because Prairie View Chamber of Commerce is a member of an organization called Texas Association of African American Chamber of Commerce. Today was the Black Business Day at the Capitol. So where if we want black businesses, where should we be? Around where other African American owned businesses were today, being addressed by Governor Abbott. In my conversations today, as I am the vice chair for the Texas Association of African American Chamber of Commerce, and have been for the last 2 years, where I've worked my way up from this chamber, but also statewide and nationally. It was that opportunity where we was to engage economic development funds for African American and minority-owned businesses in the state of Texas. How's that important? Because Prairie View Indian University is a governmental entity, and there are opportunities there are economic opportunities that they spend money annually, over $40+ million annually, and that money leaves the city of Prairie View. When I got here in 2002 as a student, I came here as an older student. I lived in Killeen, Texas prior to coming to Prairie View, where I was a member of NAACP and the Youth and College Division president at the time. In 2004, as many of you know, there was some things that happened with the district attorney challenges not just students' right to vote, but the Prairie View community's right to vote, because it wasn't just about students. In 2004, my name is on the lawsuit with 3 other students who filed a lawsuit against the district attorney, Oliver Kitzman, for the right to vote. As you know, that example was used in the VRA's 2006 reauthorization, Prairie View. As you know, 10 years later, we had something called, in 2012, we had something called voter ID and redistricting. Through NAACP and my activism from all levels, from Prairie View to the state of Texas and nationally, have been advocating for communities like our community for the past 20 years since I've been in NAACP, where I currently am the assistant treasurer state officer for the organization. Hold regional and national leadership positions in this organization. Many of you have voted for me, hopefully, when I was on city councils for 7 years. That means I ran 3 different times. I ran over 3 different times, but I was elected 3 different times to serve the citizens of this community. I'm the only one who's running for mayor who has the experience, knowledge, and leadership to lead and guide the city moving forward. PV moving forward. PV forward. My motto is a new vision, our voice. Why is that important? Our voice is important. Communication is key. We've heard that in school forever. It's one thing to have a great plan. It's another thing to know how to execute that plan. When I'm in office, 100 days, the community will have an assessment on where our community is in all of our areas. The community is currently looking for a police chief. We're currently minus 3 police officers. So when we talk about public safety, that's important. For me, community policing is important. The things that happen in other communities are just as important as when they happen in Prairie View. One, so we'll talk about having an interlocal agreement with the constable's office and the campus police. There are 2 ways a community generates resource funds. That is through property tax and sales tax. The goal is to reduce the property tax and increase sales tax. We increase sales tax by bringing businesses. The city of Prairie View is at a crossroad. There's been a solid foundation of leadership, of mayors who have brought the city to where it is. The city was incorporated in 1969. About 60 years. The university is 140 years old. We have work to do. The question is, what are we going to do together? I have a vision to move the city of Prairie View forward. But we have a voice together. Communication. That's hosting town hall meetings quarterly with our community organizations like the Prairie View Chamber, like the fraternities and sororities that are in this community, getting people actively involved. Students on campus. Something called SEC, Student Engagement Committee. Why? Because our community is split. All communities around the country that has a university, they have something what's called town and gown. It's not just new to Prairie View, it's always happened. The goal is, how do we bring everyone together moving forward? Everyone can have a different plan on how we get there as long as we're what? Moving forward. We can agree to disagree. I served with Councilwoman Herndon for 7 years. I've served with Councilman Herb Thomas for 7 years. And I've served with our mayor for 7 years. And it's through those opportunities, seeing everyone has a different type of leadership style. The question at the end of the day for our community is, what are we going to do during emergency times? What are we going to do when you need a leader who understands process on how to make tough decisions to move our community forward, to make sure that we're protecting each other? Economic development is key. I'm a financial advisor by profession. I have many clients who live in this community. I manage over $48 million assets under management. Again, I've been on city council for 7 years, so I've actually helped to balance and pass a budget. Public safety is important, and also accessing open governance. That means everybody being able to contribute. We're at a turning point, and our community needs to move forward. A new vision, our voice. I'm the voice of reason. I can step in right now and move the city of Prairie View in the direction in which it needs to go, but I can't do it by myself. I need everyone in here working to move our community forward. Part of the chamber, we're the one who hosted the meeting when it was time for our community to have a meeting about Jones Elementary. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you.
time, I'm gonna have the candidates for the commissioner's position, because I don't see anyone here for the council's position, I understand. Mr. Daryl Johnson.
Let me apologize in advance. I'm not going to be able to stay for questions. My fraternity is taking over a group of young men, 17, first time in 10 years, a whole decade. We will have 5 Beta Sigma men back on campus. Brother Hayes, Dr. Prince, I know y'all understand what I'm saying. I'm Daryl Johnson. I'm running for county commissioner. And I'm running for county commissioner basically for one reason. We need to move our community forward. We need senior programs. We don't have senior programs now. We don't have a place for seniors to gather. The work that they're doing at our First United Methodist Church is great. But the county needs to stand up and come to bat. You pay tax dollars. You pay great tax dollars. But it doesn't look like we're getting anything for the money that we're spending. We need a business infrastructure in place. We need an infrastructure in place, not for tomorrow, but for 10 years down the road, for 5 years down the road. I've been told by the senators we're the fastest growing county in the state, the 9th fastest growing county in this country. They tell me there's going to be $1 billion being spent in this county in the next 10 years. We do not have a minority procurement program in place. 6% of that should be going to women and minority-owned businesses. That's $600 million. You can build your community with $600 million. We need to turn our dollars 7 times in our community before we let it out. Right now, I don't think we are. We need to have an interlocal agreement with whoever the mayor's going to be and the county. We need to be able to fix our roads. We need to be able to put lights on roads that are dangerous. We need to be able to have an infrastructure that will support the growth that we're going to have. If we don't do it, it's going to be done. But I would rather be the person in charge than the person that's sitting there saying, wow, this isn't fair. We've had enough of the wow, this isn't fair. We also need more transparency. There's too many smoke room field meetings. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm a lobbyist by trade. I'm used to smoke room field meetings. I'm not impressed by steak dinners. I'm not impressed by golf. I do both those things for myself, frequently. So I don't need anybody else to do that at your expense. I'll be your voice. I won't tell you what you think. I'll ask you. We'll have quarterly town hall meetings. We'll have monthly meetings with seniors. We'll have monthly meetings with faith-based leaders. We'll have monthly meetings with the community. And then we'll have quarterly meetings. So if we don't know what each other are thinking, at that point, shame on us. My name's Daryl Johnson. I'm running for county commissioner because I think we deserve a change. And I would appreciate your support.
We have another candidate here for the sheriff. Give him a few minutes to make a presentation. And then we'll get into the question after.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Cedric Watson. I want to be your Waller County Sheriff. I, excuse the sweat, from Ohio originally. Temperature was dropping in minus zeros. I'll still sweat in minus zeros. Believe me, I will. It's not because of nervousness, because I just have that high drive. And that's what I want for you all as your sheriff, that high drive. I want to do what you would like to see done. I want to do what I see that needs to be done, okay? Right now, our sheriff department, it runs the county. The cities are within the county. My deputies, I'm saying my deputies because I'm claiming it. My deputies will be within the cities as well. You will see a Waller County new strike vehicle roll through the city limits throughout this county. I see that there is so much that needs to be done when I'm out there in the streets. I hear Sandra Bland. I hear guns being stolen. I hear, his daughter on drugs, high as a kite, out of jail so quick that if one of your kids were there, they'd still be in there. All right? So privilege, all because you're a sheriff, does not set right with me. And heck, if my brother was to go to jail, and I'm sheriff, and I'm a police officer right now, with Waller County Precinct 3, I'm a lieutenant. They got to sit out their duration. If a bond is set, hit that bond, But privilege is not what it is to be out here, all right? For each and every one of you, and those that are not here, I want to hear your voice. I want to hear what it is that you see out there that needs to be done. That is what's going on. Because if we can't get it together within Waller County, with our law enforcement agencies, Waller County is going to continue to dwindle. I want to bring it back up to where it used to be when Lawrence Marshall dealership was here. Waller County was on the map. Waller County still is on the map, but it's slowly dwindling, in its namesake. Sure, we may be the 9th growing county in the U.S., but that doesn't mean nothing if your reputation is tarnished. All right? Let's not tarnish Waller County. Let's keep it what it is. And as your sheriff, I plan to keep it what it is, or shall I say what it once was, but I plan to do a lot more. So with more money coming in, as Brother Johnson said, more crime will come in. With more crime, we're going to need more deputies. And I aim to please you all. I aim to get Waller County to where it needs to be, where it should be, and where it's going to stay. Cedric Watson, your sheriff.
Okay, before we move to the question, we have Justice of the Peace is here.
Not my night, but
It's
I
not
will
your
say
night,
good
but
evening
it's-
to everyone.
Good evening, Judge. How are you?
We just want to make sure we recognize that the judge is here. All right, for the mayoral candidates, if you come up, we're going to open up the floor for questioning. And
So what gentleman even
I have the first question. And the question is, having gone to the city council meetings and having endured some of the personal attacks and having observed the decorum carried on in the city council, what would be either of your plans to curtail that kind of behavior if you want citizens' input in the city council? Anyone of you can go?
I'll go. Since I encountered what you're referring to almost 5 years ago, and I was wondering, as a organizational person, why was that? And what I found was, after, 6 months, I went onto the city's website, and just to go through the information, I realized they had something called city ordinances. And I would go back during the 3-minute comments and say, well, what about such and such? And after I did that for a couple of months, they said, where are you getting this information? I said, it's on your ordinances. And it also says that in lieu of anything that's not covered on your ordinances, you're subjected to Robert's Rules of Order to pick up on that. So my position is, when you're following the rules, it alleviates a lot of the confusion, because while, as has been said, we can agree to disagree, we're going to agree to the rule as the final caveat as to what we're supposed to do.
Really, I think it's a simple approach. When we come to a city council meeting, it's simply that a city council meeting. And we need to get the business of the city taken care of first. So what I would recommend is that we do a slight adjustment. Instead of having the citizens' comments at the beginning of the meeting, have the citizens' comment move toward the end of the meeting, the business is taken care of, and that way you don't disrupt the flow of the meeting. You get your business taken care of and the people can still be heard, and you can hopefully come with a reasonable solution.
Having been on city council and been a part of some of the disruption, I think that's what makes our democracy in our country, is the ability for people who want to be heard, their opportunity to speak. I think that constructive criticism is important if you're going to move and guide a community like ours. Do I think it's excessive when we pass multiple minutes? Yes, we're going to look at some of those policies, but I think everyone should have the freedom and opportunity to express themselves if they have an issue with their city. Because again, some of those things do need to be documented and need to be addressed. And as the mayor of your community and this community, those will be what some of the things we're going to do. We're going to address issues, we're going to prioritize them and work through them through city council. City council has the vote. The mayor sets the tone. So understanding this and how I will lead you moving forward, it is being engaged that everyone should have a input, and citizens' comments is the opportunity for the community to speak.
Just for the record, Mr. Roberts, we agreed. I didn't get a chance to talk. Since Mr. Allen answered first, I'll answer second. First, the next question, then rotate it around.
Thank you very much for the instructions. Okay. The floor is open for questions, and if you wish to have all three answered, fine. If you wish to have only one answer, fine with me too. But so now anyone have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, I'm Andre Bell Miller. I have just a question for all three of you, and that is in 30 words or less. What would be your specific mission statement that you would want to make for this city of Prairie View, for the city of Prairie View?
Working for the community through the community.
Mine would be a new vision, our voice, Prairie View moving forward.
I would say, together, we can move into the 21st century as a community. We talk city a lot, but it's a real community.
Thank you.
All right, next question. Come on now. Some of y'all were talking all that stuff before we got started. Next year.
I have a question for you. I want to ask each one of them a question. Can I do that?
Okay.
My name is Kim Washington Garrett. As you know, I'm a former city councilwoman. Y'all guys put me in office for 3 terms straight, and I really appreciate that very much. And I had a chance to serve with the previous mayor, and he did a wonderful job. And so obviously we have 3 more want to step in when he's not out. My question to you, Brian, yes, you have served on city council, and I understand you ran for commissioner and mayor. Had you won commissioner, would you still be running for mayor?
The answer to that question would be yes. I was already engaged in the election for county commissioner prior to learning that Mayor Frank D. Jackson was stepping down.
Okay. Mr. Prince,
Yes, ma'am.
I've been knowing you for a minute, and yes, you have done a lot for the community. Spraying our houses, making sure we don't have roaches. I need to ask you 2 questions. I noticed you put an ad in the paper. And
Correction.
what?
I didn't put that ad.
Okay, you didn't do that? Okay, I was just wondering why I wasn't displaying what.
Because I don't even know. And
Okay.
whoever did it, please thank them for me.
Okay, and my other question is that, would you be the type of mayor that when we were in a meeting, teachers meeting, a teacher retirement meeting, and we all got taped in the meeting and we didn't know it. Would you be that type of mayor that tape us and we not know it? because some things don't need to be said, because we were private in that meeting we were in, and he taped us and put it on his radio, and I didn't like that. So would you be that type of mayor to do that without telling us that you're taping us?
Well, number one, it was a public forum. So as of my right, I had the right to record that.
Okay.
And then number two, I was making sure that the people were not in attendance were able to hear what the candidates had to say.
Okay.
So if you ask me if I become mayor, the meeting's already been. So I'm sorry that you were offended by that, but as my right, I was exercising my right. Now, if we were in a private conversation and I was recording you and I did not let you know I was recording you, that's where the legal answer comes in.
Okay. Mr. Allen, I know you've been here for, excuse me, beautiful lady of America. I hit her head. I noticed you was the only person that ran against Mr. Jackson when he was running for mayor. Nobody else went up against him. It took the people, when Mr. Jackson decided he'd step down, the other candidates would win. What made you run against Mr. Jackson? When Mr. Jackson, you stayed at his home. You rendezvous with his family. You worked with him. Y'all put a lot of projects together, raising money and moving the city and university forward. What made you run against him during the time when he was the mayor?
When I first came back, as always, I went by my buddy Frank Jackson's office and we went to a luncheon where they were recognizing service employees on campus. That's how we always ran. After going to the city council meetings, and particularly when I moved here into an apartment on Clark Street, the state of the city was and the people were the main reasons I moved back. My wife and I, we had plans to relocate to San Antonio when she finished. So thank you, sweetie, for working with me and agreeing to come here. But I went to my buddy Frank Jackson, and he was the first one I told when I made that decision. Because one of the things I learned at Prairie View, in an organization that Frank and I both hold dearly, is you don't do what's convenient. You do what's right. So I told my friend that he was too busy. And he knew I knew what that meant with his job, family, and other organizations. And I told him I was running for mayor because the city was in obvious suffering. I mean, the city ordinance, the foliage, cars, this Jimmy Jackson, the house across from the elementary school. I couldn't continue to look at it and live here. So in my concern for the city and the people, I went to my friend, and he was the first one, and during that entire campaign, I told everyone the same thing. I was running because Frank was too busy. I never badmouthed him because he was a friend, and to my knowledge, he's still a friend. We talked about some of what we need to do going forward. I shared that at a chamber meeting, and Mr. Higgs said, "You and Frank talking?" I said, "Of course. He won, I lost. Life goes on." We both love Prairie View, but that's why I ran against someone that was hopefully still near and dear to me, because it was the right thing to do. It wasn't the convenient thing to do.
Thank you. Because Mr. Jackson's my friend too.
Questions? Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I guess it's a two-part question, because one is new and one is old in terms of the context. As mayor, what would each of you do to help bring rooftops, which would help with our tax base? And secondly, what would you do to address the blight that often turns people away from settling in Prairie View?
The who?
What would you do? The blight. So I'm asking about what would you do to help bring rooftops to help with our tax base? And secondly, what would you do to address the blight? Because I hope you agree that we have a lot of blight here that needs to be addressed. What would you do? And what have you done if you've been in office?
So first, as far as bringing rooftops, within my 100-day plan, rolling out specifically is having a plan on where would we put an addition of 25 to 50 new homes. Having purchased lots from Chris Norris, and planning to build on the 3 lots that we purchased in that area We want to put together a plan how we would increase 25 to 50 homes in our community. The community would have a plan. And what we do is we identify other areas in the community based upon how much land was available and what actually could go there in unison with our city ordinances. Again, the city of Prairie View has a foundation. We have city ordinances. We have a plan on specific developments. But the goal is, if we want to reduce property tax, which is my goal, is to lower the property tax that citizens are paying. We have to bring in businesses. How do we address blight? Again, what I would do as mayor, in each of the communities and neighborhoods, I went to Denver, Colorado for a environmental justice and clean energy renewable conference with young elected officials around the country. And in this conference, we talked about, one of the things I came up with is a 2-page document that I would give to all communities and neighborhoods for you to assess your neighborhood, your street, and what we would do is we would prioritize that. So, for how this would work, Alta Vista, with all the community neighborhoods would have a sheet. We'll collect this sheet. We'd put this sheet and we'll say, list the priorities of whether they believe we need a speed bump, a stop sign, lights, how many lights. And we would prioritize that for all the neighborhoods, Prairie Gables, Prairie Hills, Concord Village. And what we would do is when it's time to do budgets, we would take these things into account. We would have a roadmap and a plan on how we're going to execute the priorities of each and every community in this neighborhood, in this community. So how do you address that? I don't necessarily know if today we can hire a full-time code enforcement or compliance officer, but what we would do is we would go, again, prioritizing by neighborhoods and by actions to reduce. So we can't say that if one neighborhood have 20 blighted homes or things that they need, the next year we shouldn't have the same 20. We should have reduced that by 5. And that's having a leader who understands city council's role and how to get city council to move in a direction to make sure that we're intentional when it's time to do our budgets, that we include these important things that are important to our community in our city budget.
One of the things that came out of you all passing the city charter is the mayor is now specifically, it was probably hinted at before, but it's real clear in the home rule charter, the mayor is responsible for enforcing the ordinances. You all will probably think that I have lost my mind. I am so ready to have so much of this stuff cut, have out-of-state and mostly airship owners have their property cut. We've got trees that go from one side to the other. But again, I didn't wait till I became mayor. I've actually cut a couple of my neighbors' yards. The lot between me and our HOA president, Ms. Carter, I spent with the cleanup day till 7 o'clock that night. It was getting dark, burning leaves and trash. So when you start talking about cleaning up the city, I can't wait. The Young property across from Jones Elementary on Owens Road, Ms. Young wants to appeal. You can't appeal a city council decision down to a committee or a board that reports to the city council. You have to appeal up. She will have 30 more days. It's been almost a year when they gave her 30 days. She will have a clear 30 days. You do it, or we're going to do it, or you better take us to court, and we're prepared to go, because the way that looks, I know it won't be a problem getting it cleaned up. When you start talking about attracting development, again, the home rule charter. We're a home rule city. We get to go, well, I'll give you by example, the landfill. It's not within Hempstead's city limits, but when Hempstead became home rule, their extraterritorial jurisdiction, or ETJ, expanded. It allowed Mayor Wolf and them to join the lawsuit. How do I know? Because I was in those meetings. I don't even want to live in Prairie View and have a landfill roughly 4 miles from me as the crow flies. So our ETJ extends the city limits. a lot of that stuff that you see between us and Waller, those folks will be in for a surprise. Because a lot of that is within a mile or less of the Prairie View city limits. I clocked it 3 months ago. We passed that last May. Waller annexed quite a bit of that property between us and them, but they had to have their permission because they're not home rule. With home rule, we don't need their permission. We're going to extend our tax base almost immediately because the law firm that represents Prairie View also represents Waller, as well as Hempstead, Stafford, and a few other places. I'll have to find out. Can you all represent us, or do we need a new law firm? I already know what to do between experience and understanding how the city works, taking the time to learn that stuff. I didn't sit in the meetings. I brought something to the meetings, and I took things from the meetings. So, let me share this. You cannot bring economic development unless you have some place to put it. If Mr. Prince had a great company or Mr. Rowland had a great company, it doesn't matter if nobody in the city was willing to work with them on doing the land. Because of relationships I built almost as soon as I got here, I've got 4 to 5 of the largest landowners with anywhere from 25 acres up to 100 saying, David, I'm ready to do some development. So if you talk about what we're going to do, it's going to happen. The $33 million budget that I ran with the 7-Eleven Corporation as a franchise consultant, the city's budget's under $4 million. This is just going to be good fun working with the people and doing what we need to do to take some of the tax burden off of our residents. And in closing, Fred Alexander, the utility supervisor, I already met with him. He's got to teach me how to drive the tractor we just bought for the city and the city lawnmower, because if it's 5 o'clock and they need to go and I got another hour and a half worth of time, I'll cut the grass myself. That's what we need to do. She just does that because I cut our grass.
Got to start at home.
If I'm not mistaken, you see how we're going to bring rooftops to the community.
What I'm really looking to hear is, how are you going to work with developers? Because it typically takes developers to bring.
Well, that's what I was going to say. The first thing we have to do is build on the success that we have right now. We have a $30 million school that's going to be going up within the next 60 days. Okay? And what comes next are homes around those schools. So what we, as a city, must do is reestablish the trust with those landowners to let them know that no one is trying to chip them out of their property, that they are part of the legacy of this community surviving and moving forward. And there's nothing wrong with being able, if you work with us and, fair market value of your land, why can't we name that street after you, leading into those subdivisions to help the legacy of that family keep on? Because the 14 gates, the 14 families represent the gates, that is wonderful, but it's what pride when your heirs can read that this is our family name, based on the history that's tied to this. The next thing you asked about was, when we develop this trust, we have to be able to do a makeover. Let's be honest. Our city has a very ugly stain on it right now, whether we intended to or not. And in order to attract those builders, to attract those businesses, we have to take an internal look at ourselves. There's a thing called perception versus reality. What people see about us is not the reality that we feel here, or you wouldn't be here tonight. But we got to come together collectively to get that message out to the people that have the money to spend to help build this community.
Questions?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Rowland, before asking my question, I want to preface it. When I got married here in Prairie View, we moved to an apartment, my husband and I. There was grass all in the backyard. It needed some work inside. We were the ones living there, so we did the work. Looking at your flyer, clean and beautify our neighborhoods by addressing blighted communities. When you were on the council, you lived on Bledsoe Street?
Yeah, 110.
Okay. Now, did that home where you live exemplify how you plan to clean and beautify our neighborhoods by addressing blighted properties?
No. When I lived at the property in 110 Bledsoe, it was owned by Dr. Monke. And we continuously went after absentee landlords who rents to students like yourself. So we would create rental agreements and ordinances that would speak to our community. We have a lot of people who rent to students who treat students any other way. They have them living in subpar environments and they're collecting rent. So that was one of the reasons why I moved. But I did leave there because we have a vacuum in the city of Prairie View. How many available apartments or homes are in our community? You can count them on your hand, right? There's not an abundance, which means that people who own properties, whether they decide to clean them up or not, they have an overabundance of people who are ready to move in, which means it's limited. So again, as the mayor of the city of Prairie View, who've had to live in substandard housing, the goal would be to work with the property owners, at the Property Owners Association in our community, to come up with an ordinance that they see fit, that we can move forward to make sure that we maintain blight and maintain a better looking community. But again, remember, I was on city council who, for the things that you put forth, also voted yay for it, so you can check the record.
Thank you, but that didn't really answer my question.
Yes, I could.
Yes, ma'am.
Hope all of you win. I wish we could use all of you. But this is one question, talking about lowering our taxes. And at most of the city council meetings, and when I hear the report from the CPA, there's a struggle with the budget, time, policemen, and all that. When the mayor comes in, there's an added bill. I'm sure we're gonna have to pay them for being there. So, if you could just address that, are you gonna lower our taxes and add more access to the budget?
Okay, and that's an excellent question, by the way. The way you lower taxes, you have to get economic development. You have to get you have to get additional homes, because it offsets everything else. There are 947 homes in Prairie View, okay? And let the truth be told, it's about 400 or some of those homes that are struggling to pay their taxes, okay? So it becomes, am I my brother's keeper? When one falls, then everybody's going to feel the brunt of that. So you have to get the development, the Dollar General that's being in place right now. That won't be the all answer, but it'll be part of coming to the answer. The one thing that we have to address as a community in seriousness, I didn't label it, but we've been identified as an industrial town. You got to understand what that means. That as much as we want the eateries, and some of those would work and will work, but if you're talking about having a bang for your buck, you have to match up with the right company that will be willing to come. We heard from the strategic planning meeting this morning, there are Fortune 500 companies that are waiting to come to Waller County right now. And Prairie View, last I checked, is a part of Waller County. So when we understand that we have to work out something that's not going to put the citizens' health at risk, but can still be something viable to this community, that is the beginning of the restructuring of our taxes to start going down. Budgets, every company in the world has a budget, and that budget is a guideline of what we should and should not spend. And if you can show me any company that budget-wise comes out 100% the way they plan it, please send them to me right now, because something always is going to be adjusted as far as the budget. When you talk about the potential of paying the new mayor, all that has come into consideration. But as the mayor, I don't think I should be the only fat cat at the table. Why not put a stipend together for the city council people that can come in, and even if it's $100 a month, $200 a month, that beats nothing. I was taught that shade from a toothpick beats nothing at all when you're in the desert. When you get that, that means that person now is receiving a stipend, which will motivate them to do a due diligence. Not saying that they're not doing it now, but there is no reason, and let's be honest, the position that we're in as a city, we couldn't afford to pay a top flight salary for what a mayor would cost. But the mayor's time is worth some value. And so therefore you come with a happy medium where everybody, where it's not going to put an additional strain. And if the truth be told, the research that I've done, yes, we have a city manager, but we've had a city manager because for whatever reason, we didn't have full access to a full-time mayor. So you can take that salary that was allotted to the city manager, and you can take that and put it out amongst the mayor and the city council to where it's going to be at least something where the people can feel encouraged and motivated for the work that they're putting in. Because right now, they probably won't see it, but a lot of people will say what's not being done right, but then no one wants to run and do anything. And then when it doesn't go out the way it should be planned, then everybody's an idiot. Well, then the people, the first thing they say, well, I'm not getting paid for this anyway. Y'all can have it. You think you can do better? Come do it. And that brings the morale of the whole community down. So at least with this, it's a start to doing something and moving forward a bigger and better future.
Okay. So, one, well, can you repeat the question?
The concern is lowering the taxes, the property taxes, and working the budget, taking into consideration that the mayor's position will now become a paid position. And how are you going to balance the budget?
So the answer to your question, and I did know the question, I just wanted to hear it clearly. One, it comes from having been the person on city council, despite varying views, there is now a Chevron gas station that is open on 0290 that some people didn't want in our community. I would say that that's one of the first name brand gas stations that we've had in the last 20 years. That is going to increase sales tax. They plan to open a washateria and additional things. They put in $1.2 million in Navasota. That was the information we had when they were coming and wanted to come in the city of Prairie View. And we had some people who were against it. But that Chevron will bring in increased sales tax. You have the Dollar General that's coming that will increase sales tax. You have Panther Plaza that has the bowling alley, food dock, eatery, and the Starbucks coffee shop will increase sales tax in the city of Prairie View. There has been a plan and things that have been put in place to increase sales tax. Now, it hasn't been as fast as many residents want it, like I've wanted it. There's strategically EDA, the city council, when I was on it, started a process to pass to get to matching funds for a $1.2 million grant from EDA. The latest council in 2016 had to re-vote on it again because they had to increase the amount of match, which will bring sewer and water from Owens Road to 0290, which then you have potential jobs wanting to relocate in this EDA package, which is 75 to 100 jobs. That's already in the works. What I want to do as mayor is to build on top of the foundation that has already been laid, to increase businesses and reduce property tax. If the mayor is doing what they need to do, like I said, I was just in Austin today with Governor Greg Abbott, Aaron Demerson, who we know was the economic development person for Governor Perry, with trying to engage African-American businesses to come to Prairie View. Just was there today. So I have a plan on how I'm going to do this and how I can do this in the city of Prairie View without increasing without putting a burden on the citizens of Prairie View. One of the questions that I don't want to say, right? The question is, how can you drive a car? Can we drive a car that's 60 years old without maintaining it? You know, there's a difference between getting an oil change and getting a tune-up, correct? Or we've just been getting an oil change. And as we continue, and we've had, again, the council in the last 10 years, we passed a bond in 2008 that invested in the water infrastructure, streets, to set up the type of development that is here. It is not what we all expected. I wasn't on council at that time, but the goal is we've been working on a plan. And as mayor, it's my responsibility to come to you with a plan that I plan to roll out to the community within 100 days of my office, on a game plan, on a roadmap, on how our community, Prairie View, is going to move forward together.
Just for David, I know all about budgets. Having been president of a whole lot of organizations, and I have to budget in my family because I'm an only person now. But we've had a lot of business coming in. And of course, they've come and they've gone. And if the students are not here, it really is done here. So, how are you going to keep those businesses open? It seems like when they first come in, they do very well. And in a few years, they're out here. So, even though you're saying that you're going to bring businesses in here, who's going to keep them open? Ladies' time. Sorry.
Good question. I wasn't here for Frenchie's, other than coming in, or Williams Chicken. But I can personally say that we supported Brewbakers on a regular basis. I supported Domino's Pizza on a regular basis. I supported Wingarita. My wife loves wings.
Papa John.
Papa John's.
Yeah.
The pizza place. Okay. Well, I found out that, I don't know, 10 years ago, the council gave Flochem 10-year tax abatement. It's my understanding, and having talked to several of those owners, including the Jazz Bar. We were there when she opened, and me and the wife went there every Sunday after church. And then we started going on Fridays with some of the people in here. So, to me, again, from a community standpoint, the city leadership has to take the role. There are many people, some in here this evening, who I introduced to the Jazz Bar, and then they introduced other people to the Jazz Bar. But if it's not happening from the city leadership in a community, it's not going to happen. None of those people got the tax abatements. Now, we gave them to those good folks who don't look like us, but we did none of that for the folks who do, who invested good money in our community. But when you start talking about, I've heard the term, and Mayor Jackson coined it, and I know he's the one that, really put it together. But again, he's one person and with other obligations. The council, and believe me, we're going to have a working council. I mean, a council who's done something in the community. What resident did you help check on their sewage issue? What resident did you check because they got loose dogs? I'm tired of calling the city hall on ordinances. But as mayor, I won't have to call except tell one of the guys to go handle it. To have Ms. Shannon send the letter out, and if it's not the first letter, it's a letter. If they got a letter before, I already spoken to Judge Overstreet. We need to renegotiate the fines. But when you start talking about revenue, I talked to the tax appraisal district about 4 months ago. Prairie View is the only city in Waller County, according to what they told me. We don't give the 65-year senior exemption. That shouldn't be. Our taxes are too high not to. But how are we going to offset it? Ask the lady in California whose property is on Owens, Lawson, and Clark. After she got her letters and paid $900 in fines, Now she cuts her yard regularly, and she's in California. When you look around, and you can start right across the street from the post office, it's hazardous in our city. A lot of people run into snakes and other things only because I think our crime situation has a lot to do, and studies have shown years ago, you put folks in blight and they're going to act like they live in blight. And that's a lot of what we got. After 5 murders in about an 18-month period, and no one doing anything about it. And I think Ms. B and Ms. Carter, y'all may have been in Commissioner's Court when the district attorney was saying there were 5 murders and he was bringing in some extra people. And the county judge, Duhan, asked, well, where the murders at? He said, all of them in Prairie View. I felt that low with those folks who don't look like us discussing that. I got with the district attorney, the chief in Hempstead, Waller, on the campus, Constable Herschel Smith, and Sheriff Smith, and did the first ever Waller County Law Enforcement Forum and told them, guys, we need you to work together. Because no, we don't have the resources here. But you know what? We don't have just 5 or 6 police officers in Prairie View. That's your mindset. Constable Smith has 30. And I've already talked to him about working with our department. We are in his precinct. While we add to ours, we've got 30. And if we need some to supplement, we've already got a pool and a guy who lives across the street from the university. So when you really look at it from a business standpoint and you understand how things work, we have everything we need. We just have to make it work. And I've got the experience to do that.
Any other questions? I have a question. For many years, we've always heard, in terms of development of the city, where the students were part of the equation, that they didn't want students living. Students living. And for the last 10 years, a lot of the people who own property or whatever are gone. And who's living in them houses right now? Students. That brings to mind the university. Prairie View A&M University had a mandate in 2003 when they hired the new president that its enrollment would be 15,000 by 2020. And last time I checked, we only had 8,000. That's only 4 years away. One of the concerns that they have for the enrollment is what they use as a statement. And sorry, the gentleman left. There's one Finley, because I was going to get him to address it. But here's the question. The concern is there are no housing for students. This addresses your issue in terms of income. The university, Prairie View A&M University, right now per capita houses more students than Texas A&M University on its campus. The University of Houston on its campus. Why? Because we have no housing in our communities to accommodate a growth for our students. And as a result of that, the university has gotten in the bed, so to speak, with this privatized housing situation. They're building all these apartments on campus. What has that done to the city? You have been robbed of taxes because those businesses are getting a free ride being on government property. So how will you address the university's quest for housing and giving free rides to companies to build houses on campus versus building it in the city?
Once again, it goes back to that relationship with the current landowners and with individual, landowners. As a matter of fact, as we speak, Prairie View is about to start phase 7 of some new apartments because of the growth that is expected and projected for the university. But when we talk about the city development, and I got to go back to the strategic planning meeting that was on this morning. It was a very informative meeting. The growth is going to happen with or without our participation. We gotta face them. So if we keep cannibalizing each other, we wanna watch ourselves erode away. They're already doing that with the zip codes. They are, you can't find us on the map. That is the beginning of the end. Sound leadership will nip that in the bud. And just because they started it don't mean they can finish it. We have to be able to show that we're entitled as a community, despite our differences, despite whether you left side, right side, blue, white, whatever, as a community, we have to be able to rally around each other and forget the little bump in the road that we had that said, you know what, because you're wearing that red cap, I'll never speak to you again. That is destroying us as a community. And that's nobody's fault but our own. That's nobody's fault. And what other folks are doing, they're looking outside and strategically waiting on us to be caught napping. And the minute they catch you napping, the next thing you know, there's another piece of property that's gone. There's another voice that just left our community. I've been talking with the students, and I'm going to say this, and it might sound crazy with me saying this, politicians have messed those students up. Politicians have messed, students are believing that this city don't want to have anything to do with them. And I said, how could you say that when 70% of the community graduated from that university? But because the politicians want to slant what they want to do, we waste time throwing dirt and shade on each other and just flat out speaking the truth. We need them just as much as they need us. And we need to be able to come together with a cohesive plan that they can build, because it's not a problem when your money is coming in. But then somebody want to build by you, then it's a problem. You understand? You can't have your cake and eat it too. In order for us to grow, you're going to have to give and get some. It's called communication. It's called negotiation. It's called moving forward. So to address the businesses, and I went back, to keep businesses in town, like I stated, we cannot write out their strategic plan, their SWOT program, their strengths, weaknesses, and analysis. But we can feed them to a source that's right on their campus that has a small business center, where as a city, we got a website. And I just don't think we're taking advantage of 21st century opportunities. Okay? There is no reason that if you need a document that you can't go to the website and pull it down in a PDF form. There's no reason for that. There's no reason that we can't do seminars and webinars that you can post on the website, so you don't have to keep reinventing the wheel, where people can go and then they can even take a little quiz for the certification to move to the next step of them having stronger business plans. I've been running a business. I ran the first African-American pest control company in Rowland County in 1996, and I ran it for 17 years. So I understand the business part of it, and if the truth be told, this city is a business. And we need to start handling it like a business. So when businesses come to sit down at the table with us, we can increase our business. And by increasing our business does the very thing that we're all sitting here talking about, is lowering our taxes. Because I struggle to pay my taxes too. Okay?
Mr. Rowland?
You cut me off?
You said you pay your taxes, and I thought you were through.
I didn't know this was time.
Huh?
No, go ahead. Don't worry.
So one, I'll just bring back the relationship. As the mayor of the city of Prairie View, I would be in support of bringing student housing into the city of Prairie View. I don't know if many of you remember, about 8 years ago, Blazer came to the city of Prairie View to buy the 40 acres off of Owens Road. That was a decision that the community made not to support that particular project. And there's a cause and effect for everything we do. As mayor, I'll make sure that our community has options. I can't pick the options for our community, but I can bring the options to our community. What I would do as mayor is connect the city to being open for business. See, it's one thing to be business friendly, meaning what is the process that I need to be able to do X, Y, and Z, whether it be to build student housing, single family housing. Have that process to be transparent and open and fluid. As mayor, that's what I plan to do. So, in relationship to the question, I will be the relationships that I have on campus. Having talked to Dr. Bradford before, Fred Washington over Auxiliary Services, who brought in an NFL player, who brought in an African-American hotel owner who has 3 hotels in Houston, about conversations on how do we develop that in the city of Prairie View. As mayor, that's what I plan to do and intend to do. But again, as the mayor, I can bring the option, new vision, but guess what? It's our voice, our community. We have to make the decision if that is what we want in our community. So as the mayor, I will bring the options to the table, and the community will say, what do we do moving forward? Again, a new vision, our voice.
I would keep it a little more straightforward. 2 years ago, at the city budget meeting, I was the only person in the room who wasn't an elected official, or an employee. To stay on top of and really continue to understand. I was in the budget meeting before that, but 2 years ago, I was the only resident. Judge Jackson was there. She was an elected official, so in addition to the mayor's wife.
I was sitting
Okay. Oh, you were judge 2 years ago? Okay, at the meeting. Okay, but when you understand budgets and having had a $33 million budget that I was responsible for, this is a lot easier than it sounds. The relationships with developers, all of the businesses that I've seen come in the last 4 to 5 years, those businesses came. Nobody went out there and tapped on their shoulder and said, hey, come to us and take a look at it. They came. That's not economic development. You don't wait on somebody to knock on your door. You call them, invite them over, whatever it is. Last month, I had a lady that, and her fiance that we rode around. She's doing some economic development in Prairie View, okay? And looking to build a relationship with someone who really understands that, to get with the landowners that I've already built relationships with and so many more out there to address and deal with, and say, okay, listen, what would you like on your property? Or we need some more hotels, we need some more this or some more eateries, and contact them and bring them and say, because the city's supposed to facilitate that. The city doesn't own that land. The city does own a lot of land that I want to take a look at. Now that we're a home rule city, the city can sell land, because all of the city land does not generate taxes. And a lot of it is harder for our people to cut because the city owns so much of it. We need to get them focused on the easements and the other properties, but because the city owns it, it's not generating a dime in taxes, and it's actually costing us every time our city employees go there to cut it. The apartment owners has a group within the city. The apartment owners in the city of Prairie View are the largest paying taxpayers in the city. But I think that needs to be regulated. I think we need to have everyone who rents apartments in the city registered with the city. Maybe institute a potential permit process. I haven't gotten that far with the attorneys on that. But we've got some slumlords in the city. Mr. Rowland touched on a situation. We've got youngsters who are living in deplorable conditions. That's not going to happen. I'm going to have them inspected. They should have been inspected. Just like Ms. Young's property, it developed that way over time. But to stay on top of those things, to use that as an opportunity to stay in touch with our local landowners and folks who rent to student housing, because yes, we need the fact Prairie View's enrollment's been going up almost every year since President Becton was in there about 25 years ago. So the enrollment is a good thing, but a lot of them wind up having to go back home and that sort of thing. So when you start talking about this, the meeting that Mr. Prince spoke of this morning, very informative meeting. But I tell you what, when they had that meeting last month in the Don Clark Auditorium on the high-speed train from Houston to Dallas. I've never seen that many white folks in Prairie View in 43 years collectively. And the development stuff that they talked about, touching on Waller, on deeper into Waller County in that area, that is stuff that's going to take place, and we need to prepare for it. But if you don't know what's taking place, I mean, how can you play a game and you don't know what the rules are?
Okay.
I have one more question.
Yes.
I'd just like to say, I'm glad you guys want to run for mayor, and it helps when you have property. It helps because you understand that if you have property, you know how things go and how you want to help in the situation. I don't want us to forget, it's a question for you all, I don't want us to forget the people who move this city forward, like the Sows and the Higgs and Gwendolyn and all, and we're very resourceful, okay? And if it wasn't for those individuals, even Miss Bell with the post office and all that, if it wasn't for these people right here, we wouldn't be where we are today because we were once students. And now we're citizens of the community. We could have went anywhere else, but we chose to stay here. We have these individuals who live in other cities, but they're here to help us in our investment. Answering your question, Ms. Carter, back 2004, somehow they did away with economic aid, okay? And my question to you guys, when we had economic aid, that was revenue that can help the city with commercial entities. How do I know? Because I was the president of that committee, okay? And I know when I left that committee, we had $500,000, but we resolved that to help the city in some other capacities, okay? And that money didn't come out of you all pockets. That money came from the taxpayers. Guess what, guys? Since 2004, we're not utilizing that revenue because we don't have 4A no more. And we got people, I believe you helped. Didn't you serve on that committee as well? No, you didn't? Okay, but I know somehow your name was brought up for some, but I know we wanted you to serve on that committee at one time because you was an entrepreneur with your business. Okay.
It's on 4B.
But let me just say.
Okay, I'm going to get to the question. Well, you know what? I'm excited because I was the president. I'm the one who put that light up at the university, okay? With TxDOT, okay? What would you guys do so we can stay out of the citizens' pockets? How would you bring economic aid back and get that revenue because it's out there and it's not being utilized?
Let me just answer that.
You look good answering it. Go ahead, Mr. Ross. I'm going to sit down.
4A went out of business, but the money didn't go out of business. All they did was reduce the amount of money that they would have given to 4B and put it in the city's revenue. Remember, it comes from sales tax.
I understand
So it ain't got nothing to do with the citizens in terms of property tax. It's strictly sales tax.
No, but what I'm saying
And so
is-
even though, remember, you had A and B.
Correct.
And you separate 1 cent, a half cent, an 8
Correct.
cent, or 10 cent.
Correct.
So what the city did was once they got rid of 4A, that money was used for city business, but then the amount of money that was going from sales tax to 4B went to the city side.
Correct.
So the city still gets that money.
Correct. I understand that. My question is that 4A brings back commercial development. And that's what we're talking about. If we bring commercial development rooftops, to me that will help with the citizens, tax and maybe bring their tax down. That's all I'm saying. Is that true? Can anybody answer that question?
Well, I think part of that whole answer would be in the process of hiring an economic development specialist for the city. Right now, that has kind of been suspended due to the fact that there'll be a new mayor soon. So the hiring process has been kind of put on pause for that.
Okay.
So, and what you got to understand, when you hire a person to do a specific job, then you base them on what they produce. That's the way of corporate America. That's you show me what have you done for me lately. So then to answer that, that person would then work with 4B in a direction to go. There have been, we've spent reports on analysis up to I'm fed up to here with them. Okay, so all that has been put in place. So you need someone whose main focus would be economic development. Economic development. And I believe we're in position for that to kind of take off right now.
Well, let me close on the economic development director situation. They are about to hire one. I think I understand they've narrowed it down to the last 2 or 3 people out of the applicants. The only problem I have with that is going back and looking at the history on the city's economic development 4B. and I'll read it. This is in their bylaws. Okay? The board may plan and direct its work through a director of economic development. The city voted 2.5 years ago to hire, and 4B did, okay? They were supposed to have hired an economic development director over 10 years ago. It's in the bylaws. You didn't have to go through the voting process that they took us through. If you check the bylaws, it was already approved because it's a part of your bylaws. They just didn't act on it. They didn't know about it. They didn't do it. Who cares? It wasn't done. The problem is, this is the due diligence that I speak of. If you're going to have your documents and you're not going to read them, and then we go through a process to do what has already been approved 10 years ago, so we've gone through 10 years of not having one because that board, whoever all of those people that sat on it may be, but remember, they report to the city council. So if the city council who approves the board members, the mayor makes the recommendation, but the city council approves. The city council is called the city council meeting for a reason. It's not called the mayor meeting. The problem that I would say is that so much was put on Mayor Frank Jackson's shoulders. He had a council that was not doing what they should have been doing. He had boards that were not doing what they should have been doing. He put them in place. And the city residents elected the council people. But if you're not going to read your foundation, when I saw this and I said, we went through this 2.5 years ago, now we're going through an interviewing process, the 4B has over $600,000 sitting. So when you start talking about economic development, why weren't you supporting the businesses that did come in and the individuals that set things up? 4B had the money. The city could have given tax rebates, but 4B had money specifically for economic development, and they should have hired a development director at least 10 years ago, according to these bylaws.
May I address that, Judge? Being that I've been on 4B and still currently on 4B, and I believe Ms. Herney could verify this, we've had discussions to hire economic development leaders, but you just don't hire somebody because you have the ability to hire somebody. It's got to be the right fit. I don't go get a girlfriend because I want a girlfriend. She got to be the right fit. So, I mean, yeah, there is $600,000 available. And when you're talking about assessing and helping businesses, we've helped a number of businesses to come in here. In fact, I took it upon myself to promote the businesses through my radio station that didn't want to pay for it themselves. So the development, once again, economic development, you just can't give a person who wants $200,000 and they got an application filled out in Crayola. Okay, when people don't understand, just because the money is available, doesn't mean we just throw it out, because due diligence, that's taxpayers' dollars. And being on that board, I'm not going to just allow taxpayers' dollars to be haphazardly spent because it's there. Okay, so while it might not been doing what others may have think it done, at least it's earning some type of interest. At least it's doing something positive for the city. So when people come and to let the record be told, 4B has carried this city. The city hall couldn't get finished without 4B. Everything that had developed started at some point with 4B coming to the rescue. And that's fact.
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
4A saved them.
Yeah.
4A may have saved us, but 4B carried it
That's why I
on.
want 4A to come back, because 4A.
Well, I don't-
We're gonna work on that when they get elected, either one of them, they're gonna work on that. All right, without closing comments, we'll start with Mr. Will on the end and come down to Mr. Express.
Good evening, residents, neighbors. My name is Brian Rowland. I'm running to be your mayor of the city of Prairie View, because I think Prairie View can move forward. I have a plan, I have integrity, I have character, and I have experience to be able to move this community forward. It's not going to be an easy task, so I don't want to tell you like it is. I don't know all the answers like some who sits before me today. But what I do know, that I will give it my best. I know how to plan, analyze, through my education, to move this community forward. Again, I ask for your vote and your support on May 7th, 2016. It starts on May 7th with the vote. But again, a new vision, our voice, because we have to do this together. There are a lot of moving pieces that are before us, and we don't want people to play shell games with you. We have a tough road ahead of us with many lawsuits and things that are on the books currently. People talked about how we're going to add more expenses and ain't talking about how we're going to reduce expenses. So again, please don't be fooled or bamboozled. Again, we can do this together with prayer, grace, and sound resources that we all have to come together wanting to do. I think everybody up here wants the city of Prairie View to be great.
Amen.
And I hope that regardless of what happens on May 7th, we don't have filibusters. We have people who are ready to stand to move this community forward. PV moving forward, new vision, our voice. Thank you again for allowing me to speak to you.
In closing, I'm going to close the same way I opened. The position of mayor of any city is not a training ground. And as you look at all of us, when you look at what you need done, what has been done by Mayor Jackson and his predecessors and Councilman Rowland and Herndon and their council predecessors,
Amen.
I want you to take a look and see what we've done. We all have great visions. You all have great visions. But you can't play a game if you don't know what the rules are.
Everybody have land.
So
Amen.
when you start talking about relationships with landowners, having dealt with economic development in other capacities, and the love I have for this place is such that while I was away in California and running back and forth, I was still named the #1 recruiter in Prairie View's history because of knowing when I'm sending them down here, I know they were going to be safe, and I know they were going to be around wonderful people like you all. So as you prepare to vote, starting April 25th with early voting, it'll be 2 days on campus, 7 days at City Hall. I just ask you to not vote for any of us, vote for Prairie View. God bless.
All right, in closing, I want to thank you all for this opportunity to be before you. I thought this was very important for me as a candidate, for you to know who Michael Prince is. A lot of people assume they know who Michael Prince is, but Michael Prince, for the most part, has been a private man. He's taken care of his family, he's taken care of his business. And I'm proud that a lot of people didn't know who I was, because that means that I'm not a nosy individual. I'm not in your house, and you're sure not in my house. But as a leader, I have done and will continue to do what's best for this community. It's documented and proclamated through the Mayor Jackson himself on January 27, 2007, whether you knew it or not, that January 27th is considered Elder Michael Prince Day for the work that I've done for this community. But I don't boast on that because there's still work to be done. And as elected mayor, being the voice of the people, even if you don't vote for me, if I'm elected, I'm still going to be your voice. So allow me to serve you. Allow me to continue to bring forth the positive change that needs to take place in this community. Regardless of how you feel, regardless of what you may think, regardless of what you may have heard. I'm very transparent, almost to a fault. Am I perfect? Not by a far stretch of the imagination. But whatever I've done, I'm proud enough to repeat whatever I've done, whatever I said. You don't have to hear about it in a whim or on the wind. I'll tell you face to face, man to man, gentleman to young lady, however the case may be. We're at a very critical point, ladies and gentlemen, where we as a city have got to move forward. We got a water concern that was not even touched tonight. We got a water concern that because of half-truths with equal whole lives, we got people in a panic. When the fact is, we're in the situation that we're in because of a test that was missed. And because of due process, we have to be able to go back and wait till the allotted time when you can retest, where you can get your status back as a healthy water community. We got a situation with East Texas Precast right now, where the citizens in that area have been complaining for dust particles for years. Well, guess what? I've already started a negotiation process on what they can do to make it healthier for the citizens in this community. I went into a community that, and let's just tell the truth be told, for the most part, most of this community left for dead. Left it for dead. But I decided that I would invest my money, my time, and put my family there to bring some credibility back. Talking about cutting, my lawnmower is broken right now because I cut the man's yard across the street and my belt snapped. But we're still going to find a way to get it done. And I honestly and sincerely pray that as a community, whoever ends up in that seat, that we don't run away pouting and kicking rocks because we didn't get elected by the people. That we don't start little proxy pop-up hate groups to continue to stifle the community. That we come together. There's too much knowledge here. There's too much knowledge out there that where we cannot be the leading face of Waller County. And I believe that I can connect those dots and help move this city forward. On May 7th, I believe the best choice would be Michael Press for mayor. Thank you.
I want to give all our candidates a round of applause.